Good morning. Welcome back to Passionate World Radio Network, where passion meets reality. This morning at 10 a.m. on Lillian's interview, Lillian Caldwell is interviewing Tamara Patzer, who has her own radio show called Innovative Radio, and she helps with her total audience market immersion, and she does this with authors, where most of them don't know what they're doing. So good morning, Tamara. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Lillian.
Well, you're more than welcome. I wanted to get you on because authors are having a lot of trouble getting themselves heard, recognized, and branded with their books.
Well, I think I can help them. I can give them some good advice. If you've already got a book, obviously we have a lot of really good ways to market ourselves online, especially, for example, if you're using social media or Amazon. So if you want me to expand on anything, just let me know.
I do, because a lot of authors don't seem to realize that they need to start marketing and promoting their books even before it's published. A lot of them wait until it's published, and then they go out, and that's a mistake for most of them.
Yes, think about your book. It's kind of like a baby when you really think about it, because you are taking your prenatal vitamins and you're growing something, and then of course you have the birth, and then that's the beginning of a whole new phase. But during the process of writing a book and marketing it, I absolutely agree with you. You have to be creating what I call your foundation for marketing. So what that means is, if you are going to be in the business of being an author, you have to actually treat yourself as a business. So that means set yourself up in a business situation, form a sole proprietorship or an LLC, get set up so that you are actually seeing yourself as a business. And then if you're an author, one of the first things you should do would be to go out and create your social media pages. And for example, that could be a LinkedIn profile, Facebook profile, and of course you can have your personal page in Facebook and an author page in Facebook, and start to put your face out there as an author. And then, of course, take advantage of Amazon's author page and get prepared. Start putting out information about what your book is. If it's your first book, obviously, you might, talk about what the title is, and maybe if it's a nonfiction book, what it's about, or if it's a fiction book, you would, of course, talk about your characters, and you could start a blog. There's just so much you can do before you ever publish the book to get your name out there, so that once it is published, you already have a fan base started.
Now, one of the things the authors must realize before they do anything is, when you set yourself up as a business, of course, you want some kind of business plan. And I call it your author's plan, where you actually sit down and you decide, besides the title of the book, you want some kind of short description of what the book is all about. I tell authors they have about 19 seconds to talk to somebody in media to convince them to let them appear on a TV show or on a radio show.
It's probably less than 19 seconds, but you're absolutely right. And another thing, if you are seeking to get on a podcast, a TV show, radio show, you want to have some type of a hook that will make it attractive, especially if you're trying to go on a local television station to promote yourself. So, of course, the big hook you have for local television is you are a local author, typically, or you live in that state, or maybe the topic of your book is something that is hot in the news. So here's a tip you can use if you're writing either a fiction or a nonfiction book. Try to find something that's happening in the news that a TV anchor person could hook your story to, and that will make you really attractive to them to bring you on to talk about what your book is all about.
And not only that, make sure that your synopsis is all maybe 2 or 3 sentences, the longest. So if somebody asks you what your book is about, you're not going to look at them with stricken face and bugged eyes. You're
Right.
going to have to say, for example, it's a multicultural paranormal mystery set against the search for Jefferson Davis' lost gold treasure. Boom. That tells them everything they want to know in one sentence.
Yes, and it also helps them to lead the questions. Another tip is whenever you're in an interview, and sometimes the anchor will steal your intro that you were going to use as your answer to their first question. So never, ever answer their question with absolutely. It's a word that doesn't really mean anything. Always start talking immediately about your book and your topic, and that way you're in more control of that interview and you come off sounding a lot smarter.
Another thing an author needs to consider when I interview them, they always say, oh, well, if I tell too much about my book, no one will come and buy it. Well, folks, it's the exact opposite. Sometimes you have to give them the bloody, gory, blood dripping over their hands part of the story. It's like writing a resume and gripping the person who's reading it by the throat and bringing them down to what you've written. You have got to hook them emotionally.
Emotions are the driving force behind most readers. If you think about it, why do people buy a book? They buy it to escape or to learn or to get involved. And that's one reason romance novels are so popular, is because people just read and they can imagine everything happening in their mind. So you're absolutely right. If somebody wants to know more about your book, tell them a little bit about the characters, about where it's set. There's so much color that you can give to people to entice them to buy your book. That is really important. I absolutely agree with you on that, Lillian.
Good, because I know that a lot of authors are quite reluctant to talk about their books. And I also know that a lot of authors don't read their books before they go on an interview. So should you manage to get an interview before your book is out, make sure that you have read your book so that if the person who's interviewing you asks you about a particular obscure passage, you'll be able to answer their question.
Yes, that would probably be a really wise thing. And then also, remember, if you are out there trying to get interviews, you can often provide the anchor questions so that they can use that to prep. So they'll be a better prepared interviewer, so that when you are there talking with them, remember, you probably only have 2 to 5 minutes on the air. So you have to really know what you want to convey to the audience, and also make sure that you give the television station or the radio station information about where people can go to buy your book. If it's available at your website or Amazon, make sure you give the audience ways to go take action to go get that book.
And more importantly, bring the book with you when you're being interviewed so that they'll ask you to hold your book up to the screen. They may even ask you to read a very brief passage from the book. So the night before, go through the book and select salacious passages, mark them down with some sticky notes. So when you get there, you're prepared for everything.
preparation is the key. And another thing that often people are hesitant to do, especially on television, is you can wear a costume. Think about a costume. Even the Queen of England has a uniform when you think about it. She normally wears a little hat and she's dressed in her little suit. Or think about if your books are about superheroes, you could even appear on television as a superhero. And always just think about the visual, audio, and get all the senses involved. And on television, the book is a prop, and just always bring a prop and other tools that you can show people. I appeared on television, and one of my props was one of those big goofy rings that you can get, at a party shop. Normally they're like a lollipop ring. And my segment was about finding love on Facebook. So I pulled out this ring, because at the time, Put a Ring on It was a popular song. And I pulled out this ring as a prop, talking about love and Facebook. And of course, the reaction was, they actually ended up doing a big close-up on that during my news segment, and it made it fun.
The other thing that you need to remember when you are an author, there are free ways that you can get your book out to the public. Do your research on the internet. I think that's the one time you can actually search on the internet and be pointed to the right content. But it provides you with lists of where you can send free news releases. It provides you with lists of stations that still do talk programs. It provides you with lists of libraries within your specific area or the next 25 miles. It gives you bookstores that pander to science fiction or to romance. You need to be able to be brave when you're promoting yourself.
Yes, don't let fear stop you, especially television interviews where you would be on camera. Many people will say, oh, I don't like the way I look, or I'll wait until I lose weight. Well, guess what happens? You never will get on television if you're going to wait to be perfect. You can also get interviewed on online radio shows and podcasts. Many of those are just audio interviews. But take advantage of all of the opportunities that you have to talk on radio shows, television programs. Call your local newspaper, send them a press release about you. Many times a local newspaper will write a huge article about a local author because that is really big news. About 80% of people want to be an author, but they don't ever do it. So the fact that you are an author really is a news item, and it is newsworthy.
And something else to consider. I had a fellow author who made it to the big time. She was received on the Oprah Winfrey Show when it was still on television. And she told everybody about her experiences. And when she got off, she waited for all the fan mail and contacts and everything else. And it never materialized. Moral to the lesson. Just because you're on Oprah or Ellen or some of the other talk show hosts does not necessarily mean you're going to get instant fame and fortune. You need to work to achieve it. You need to have your audience identify with you and trust you and want to be like you. Again, you have to grab the audience by the throat to get them to respond to you. So don't be blindsided by the fact that I hit the big time, because it doesn't work out that way always.
You are 100% correct. Here's the key. Every time